8:36, Big 550 KTRS. Good morning, David Stokes.
Good morning, McGraw.
David Stokes, of course, the policy analyst for the Show Me Institute here in St. Louis. Your wife's back from her vacation?
Yes, she's been back for a week.
Okay.
I actually joined her in the middle of the week
nice.
week ago. Joined my wife and kids.
Because last time you were here, you were bragging that you played 92 holes of golf while she was away.
Well, for the first weekend, yes. And then after a few days, I went and joined the family.
Now that she's back, how many holes of golf did you play this past weekend?
I played 18, and here's the great part about it. We were the first people off on Sunday morning. So we got around, my friend and I got around in 2.5 hours.
Do you play with your wife?
No, she's not a golfer.
She's not a golfer. Okay.
But we played from 7 a.m. We were done by 9:30. I was home with the kids by 10, being a good dad.
Perfect. When'd you take your nap with your hand in your pants watching TV on the couch?
During the World Cup championship.
All right. What's this story? Jennings wants to do away with their fire department?
Jennings does, and I wrote an op-ed a couple years ago praising Jennings because they've made some really good, hard decisions in the past few years. They switched from being a point-of-sale city to a pool city, which, as we've discussed on the show many times, involves they no longer keep all the sales taxes generated in their city. Now they're in the countywide pool.
Right.
So they have less incentive to use incentives, such as tax increment financing. Mm-hmm. They also ended their own municipal police department a couple years ago and contracted with St. Louis County to patrol the city. And I think that was a great move. Now they want to go to the next step, and I commend them for wanting to make these changes to their city. They want to dissolve their fire department. And I think that's great, too. My only question is in the next part of it, where according to the plan they're going to present to the voters next month, they want to have the city merge into the Riverview Fire District. And I don't think that's necessarily the best move. I think they need to fully investigate being served by a neighboring city, such as Ferguson's fire department.
So you don't like who they're cutting a deal with, or you don't like the structure itself?
I don't like the structure of fire districts in St. Louis County themselves. I think a lot of us might recall, it was a while ago, but the Post-Dispatch did a great sort of investigative series on fire districts in St. Louis County and St. Charles several years ago, and it really exposed a lot of problems with fire districts in the way that the fire union gets control of the district through these obscure April elections that few people vote in, and then the very incredibly generous benefit and payment packages for the members. And we all want our firemen to be paid well. Mm-hmm. No, but the difference between municipal fire departments like Jennings currently has and the fire districts can be substantial. So I just hope that Jennings has at least fully investigated being served by another nearby municipal fire department such as Ferguson's and not just jumping into this fire district.
If Jennings is sourcing out their police department, sourcing out their fire department, sourcing out some of all these other services that a city provides, what's the point of having Jennings as a city to begin with?
Well, as you've said on the show several times, the point in the end just comes down to control of land use decisions, planning and zoning.
Right.
So that's what they would want. And I happen to think that there are many, many cities. We all talk about merging cities all the time, particularly in North County, but there's small cities throughout St. Louis County. I think disincorporation is a good option in many cases. But this disincorporation issue wouldn't apply to fire districts. St. Louis County doesn't provide fire services. So if they disincorporated, they'd have to either contract with a neighboring fire department or go into a fire district. And I just hope that Jennings has really investigated, are they getting the best deal for their taxpayers? Because the article clearly states that if they go into this fire district, taxes for the residents are going up somewhat substantially.
So you would rather them go to the fire district of Ferguson than explain that again.
The fire department, the municipal fire department of Ferguson, a neighboring city. Or
as opposed to the Riverview Garden district.
Right.
Okay.
This is very, very confusing for a lot. We have about 22, 23 municipal fire departments in St. Louis County.
Okay.
We also have about the same number, 22, 23 fire districts, which are independent political entities that elect their own fire board and they run the district. Monarch and Melville have been very controversial.
And we've seen what a disaster
district.
Monarch is always getting into all sorts of trouble and controversy.
Over the past decade, the elections have been very contentious, and the issues are the same. Yes,
right.
The municipal fire departments tend to be less controversial because they're just run by the city council. Those city councils, they have to spend money in that fire department the same way they spend money in the parks department, the streets department, the police department.
Right.
They're there to put it all into the whole and look out for the interests of the taxpayers totally.
It's also fire departments are very different. If you're a firefighter in St. Louis, that's a very different role than, say, a firefighter in Cottleville, right? I mean, Cottleville Fire Department, I don't want to take anything away from the fine people of Cottleville, but they're just, the amount of fires they have just aren't nearly the number as they are in the city of St. Louis. So it seems like, in terms of firemen and fire departments, it's a wide spectrum.
And some are volunteer also. Some of these guys volunteer. I mean, there's really small communities.
Right. When you get out in rural Missouri and really the far extended exurbs, you have some volunteer fire departments. But in St. Louis County, it's all full-time professional.
Paid.
And St. Louis City and St. Charles County, too. You've got,
Yeah.
It's all full-time paid, either fire districts or fire
And
departments.
are they all mostly union too?
Right. The fireman industry in the St. Louis area is heavily unionized. And those firemen unions are very political. And they're very active in the fire districts, but they're also active in the municipal elections and fire departments. And we've seen that in University City, where the firemen's union was really active in the last April election, trying to get their supporters elected.
We just played golf for a local fire department's volunteer fire department. Where was it? Was that in Columbia, Illinois? Waterloo? It was Waterloo. It was for the Waterloo Fire Department, which is all volunteer. So we went and played golf and raised some money for them. But the volunteer fire department is an interesting conversation because I grew up on Long Island, and all of Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk County, every single town is a volunteer fire department.
Really?
That's right. So Long Island, which is not like Gilligan's Island with 6 people on it. This is a really Long Island with millions and millions of people, and town after town after town is all volunteer fire department.
Still, in 2014?
In 2014, still volunteer fire department. Yeah.
That's a big undertaking for someone to volunteer for an area like that.
And so when I moved out of Long Island, I was like, oh, wow, people pay firefighters? Wow, that's interesting. Because it was all volunteer. It's just, think about that for a second. That is amazing.
I'm not recommending that for Jennings or for St. Louis County. I do think Jennings should maintain professional fire services. I just hope that, I think there's a record of the municipal fire departments doing a better job of watching taxpayer dollars than the independent fire districts. And that's clear from the story. I think it was a KMOV story that did this story a few days ago. It says the firemen of Jennings are strongly supportive of this move. That's, yes, because they know that their union will have a lot more power within a fire district than they would in a municipal fire department. And I hope that Jennings has just done all the necessary work and considered all options for this to really be the best one. Because if this passes, taxes are going up in Jennings somewhat substantially.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Speaking of taxes, we're coming up with an August election coming up here in 2-3 weeks, right?
Right. I think 3 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's going to be the Dooley Stanger vote. It's also going to be the vote for whether or not to raise sales taxes for roads, right?
Correct.
What is that sales tax? Do you have those numbers in front of you? I don't want to put you on the spot here, but what's the argument there?
Well, I think the exact numbers, it is intended to raise right about $500 million a year, the 3/4 cent sales tax.
And this is a statewide sales tax.
Correct.
So it's 3/4 cent sales tax that would raise how much? $500 million a year?
Slightly, if I recall, it's slightly above $500 million a year.
And you have come out and said that you would much rather see a gas tax than a sales tax.
Absolutely. Paying for highways and major bridges and roads around the state through a general sales tax, which means we're going to pay for our roads based on how much we shop and not how much we drive. That's terrible public policy.
Now, what's interesting is we don't have a say in this. The legislature just said you're going to vote up or down on a sales tax increase.
Correct.
So because of that, if I'm arbitrarily, let's just pick a voter out there who says, boy, we need to invest in our roads. And I would like to have a higher gas tax than a sales tax, but the sales tax is better than no tax and no improvement of our roads. So what would you say to that person who wants your taxes raised, but since can't vote on a gas tax, can only vote on a sales tax, should that person vote in favor of that sales tax?
Well, I really can't answer it as directly as you want. We are a 501c3 organization.
All right. Well, what would you say to somebody who said?
I would say, generally speaking, I think that would be a poor reason. If something is poor public policy, and most people, I shouldn't say anyone,
right.
most people who study public policy from all different perspectives know that primarily paying for roads and bridges like this through general sales taxes, so that people who bike to work or walk to work or have a short commute are going to pay exactly the same as people with an hour commute or more. They're going to pay more now than truckers, who are the ones damaging our roads primarily. The trucking industry is getting off scot-free in this proposal. It is absurd that just because you want to invest in the roads, and I would agree we need to invest in our system, I don't think that justifies something which is a terrible policy choice and almost certainly a permanent policy choice. Because if you can't raise the gas tax, but if you say, we'd have to raise it by 20 cents and voters will never go for it. Well, 10 years from now, because you can't raise the gas tax for the next 10 years if this passes, 10 years from now, you'd have to raise it 40 cents.
Right.
So you're never going to get it according to their logic. So this is a permanent change. If this passes 3 weeks from now, Missouri will now permanently be funding primarily its roads and bridges through general sales taxes instead of user fees like gas taxes. And I think that's a terrible policy choice for many, many reasons. We should pay for our roads based on what we drive, not on what we shop.
Which we keep sending all of these good conservatives who know all about government down to Jefferson City, and yet they chose to put it on the sales tax and not the gas tax.
And if the voters want to fund our transportation needs the way we should through user fees, then the choice would be, if this goes down, then perhaps next year they'll put a gas tax increase on the ballot. Because they've said, we have to do the sales tax because gas tax polls so poorly. That's been the stated reason. We're doing this many times. I've never seen that poll.
Yeah, has it been like one poll?
I've never seen that poll. They never showed how the question might have been rigged. I mean, you can get any answer you want out of a poll.
Exactly.
Trick question poll.
So let's put the gas tax question before the voters and see what they say. And let's also put tolling back before the voters to expand that in Missouri, because that really is we talk about concerns that with high gas mileage cars not paying for it in the long run. The best way to address all of this is through increased use of tolling.
Chicago has a lot of tolls, don't they?
Chicago does have a lot of tolls.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. David Stokes, when can we read you? When can we see you?
You can see a lot of information see the article I referenced earlier, praising Jennings for its prior decisions, as we discussed, not 100% sold on the current choice. You can see that at showmeinstitute.org, and my colleague Joe Miller, who has got a lot of great writings on the transportation tax proposal. You can see all that at showmeinstitute.org, our blog, showmedaily.org. Follow me on Twitter at David C. Stokes.
That's the guy we like who filled in on the board meeting the other day.
He did?
Joe Miller.
Joe Miller. He's been with us for about a year. He's doing great.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, the ladies loved him.
The ladies?
Jane.
There was one lady, Jane.
Jane and Dept Peterson.
Oh, that was the one that, okay.
Yeah, they were like, little Joe. And I was like, what about me? They're like, forget you. We like little Joe. All right. David, good to see you, my friend.
Thanks, McGraw. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, David.
Talking